I guess you have already checked the agenda when you register, but let me briefly explain what is somehow the schema that we are going to follow during these days. Well, today it will be kind of an introduction, and we will cover some of the topics that are part of this first FIWARE Developers Week. But for the rest of the days, at least from Tuesday to Thursday, the things will be organized so that there will be training sessions in this place. It will be the same place today and the rest of the days for somehow following the training sessions. During those sessions, we will introduce FIWARE technologies to you, and we will also propose a number of exercises. And those exercises are intended to be developed by you in the afternoons. So there will be a space different than this, where you will have tables, where you will be able to plug your computer and work more comfortably than here in this room. And you will be able to work on those exercises we have proposed in the morning sessions. And there will be several FIWARE experts that will be around so that you can ask them questions and solve any issues you may find while trying to develop the exercises. The whole idea is that we do not just cover the theory, but also you can do some hands-on the technology during these days, okay? And hopefully end up the week with some prototypes, with some examples of applications that you will be able to develop using FIWARE technologies. At the end of the week, we expect that we will give to you some diplomas so that you can also show that you attended this course and well, were able to complete the exercise that we were proposing. Many of you are here because you work for some SME or some startup that was selected under the FIWARE Acceleration Program. So we hope that after this week you will have enough information as to be able to start designing your application, taking the most out of FIWARE. Because you know one of the requirements for this program was that you try to use FIWARE when developing the application you want to commercialize and create a business around. The whole week will be performed in English because first of all there are some people following us on streaming, and also because there are some of you that are not from Spain, although many of you are from Spain. But I hope this will not be any major issue. And I believe regarding logistics, to avoid you misconcentration, we will offer some lunch during these days, so don't worry, you will not have to go to the canteen and go through a queue for getting something to eat. We have planned to offer some catering as well as We will have also a coffee break in the morning and in the afternoon. So I think it will be hopefully a nice setting, and you will enjoy it a lot. Also, I hope we will get some fun also during these days. And I think regarding logistics, Fermin, maybe, is anything else missing? I think it's the most. Anyways, we will see as things progress. This is the first FIWARE Developers Week that we have set up, so please try to be a little bit indulgent. We will fine-tune this process and do it better over time. So, but of course, we are eager to hear about your feedback, anything you believe could help us to improve these sort of training sessions in the future. That is rather welcome. So please do not hesitate to contact any of us and say, okay, this is what I would improve. I will do this or that this other way. We are happy to hear from you and get your feedback. It would be also very nice if you can run some posts on Twitter. There is a FIWARE Twitter account, so and anything you want to share through that channel would be great. It will help us to also raise awareness. So we are here as being part of a big program and a community we are trying to create. So the more you can also contribute, the better, and it will be rather welcome. Okay. So this first speech, which I will give, tries to give a kind of a introduction to FIWARE, both from a technical point of view, a bit, to give you an overall context, and second, also for a more kind of a strategic point of view. My name is Juanjo Hierro, and I'm the coordinator and chief architect of FIWARE. So you can see me as the guilty man of many of all the things that are wrong. And well, I hope this this introductory speech will allow you to get in a smooth way into the game. Well, first of all, I would like to share with you that this is part of a very ambitious program. If you are a startup that got into the FIWARE Acceleration Program through the first open call that was launched, I want to share with you that this is really means becoming part of something we try to make big, and something around which we would like to create real impact on the market and real impact on life of people and life of businesses, okay? And this all has to do with creating an ecosystem. And as such, you are a very important part of it. This ecosystem is based in the first place on technology, that is the FIWARE platform, but it's not just the technology. We understood from the very beginning of this program that technology alone would not help us to achieve the goal. We wanted to create impact, and for this we had to put in place a number of instruments. So FIWARE is the first pillar of this program, because of course technology is important. We are trying to create standards that allow to shape a market for solutions that entrepreneurs can create. And FIWARE is about creating those standards and avoiding to get locked in existing internet incumbent players. But we want to introduce another pillars that could help the whole thing, the whole story to be a success. The first thing we are putting in place is the FIWARE Lab. FIWARE Lab is trying to become a meeting point on the internet, a place where entrepreneurs like you, developers like you, can play with the technology, play with the data that is going to be published in that environment, and allow you to create outstanding applications you can showcase to your potential customers or potential investors. Okay? This is a very simple concept, but on the other hand, a very powerful concept, because interestingly enough, there is not such meeting point on the internet where for entrepreneurs it would be easy to show what they can do, and for potential customers it would be easy to find out and discover what developers and entrepreneurs can create. We, as part of this training week, we will explain to you, to give you an introduction on how to enter the FIWARE Lab, how to create your first account and play with the environment, be able to set up a virtual infrastructure on top of which deploying your application and playing with that. Another pillar of this program is the FIWARE Acceleration Program. You are already, some of you are already part of it. We wanted to give some fuel to ignite the engine of this aircraft, of this car, and we thought it was important to put some money there and to help you create your idea, to stimulate, to also allowing you to take the risk, all right? The nice thing about this acceleration program, as you probably know, is that this is free money. I mean, it's money that is given away to entrepreneurs, SMEs, without no equity share. And this is very interesting for entrepreneurs and startups and SMEs. And this started last September with an open call to which many of you compete with proposals, and some of them have already been selected. This was a really competing process. I tell you that it was about 4,000 SMEs and startups who sent an application to this program. There were more that approached the FIWARE Acceleration Program in the first place, but around 4,000 really applied, and about 400 has been selected. So we are talking about 1 to 10 formula in the selection process. So quite competitive in that sense, and it's going to be more competitive because we really believe, and this is something we are realizing, that people is getting more and more aware about FIWARE. So we expect that there will be more SMEs and startups that will compete in the second open call of this program. And this will be great because I'm pretty sure you agree that the more outstanding applications we end up creating based on FIWARE, the more we will show the possibilities, and we will be able to attract more talentum and create a really open innovation ecosystem, which is the ultimate goal. Another program that is part of this is the FIWARE Mundus program, because FIWARE was born in Europe, but since the very beginning we had a global ambition. And we didn't want this to be technology and an ecosystem about which only European companies could take advantage of. We really wanted to share this with companies and organizations in other regions where they share the same vision, the same needs, the same ambition. This ambition to create open standards based on which you can create the smart applications of the future. So just for you to know that FIWARE Mundus is part of the FIWARE program and is there trying to replicate what we are doing in Europe in other regions. We started first in Latin America. Particularly Mexico was the first country where this is taking off. They have been able to set up a FIWARE lab node there in Mexico with a significant investment by the Mexican government. And there are conversations and activities running in countries such as Brazil or Chile, right? And other countries have approached us showing interest to know more about FIWARE, to learn more about FIWARE, and try to import what we are doing here in Europe in their countries. I'm telling this because from your perspective as a startup or developer, this means opportunities. Both the FIWARE Acceleration Program and the FIWARE Mundus program. The FIWARE Acceleration Program do not think just about the money. This is, well, the very first incentive, but, and I know many of you already would agree with what I'm going to say. It's more than funding. It's about awareness. It's about showing your case and reaching potential customers. Within this program, as you can imagine, we are eager to create and promote success stories. And those success stories are going to be yours, okay? So the best applications coming out from startups and developers will be the first applications we are going to invest in order to promote them, to showcase them in different events. We are present, and this will be a great opportunity for you to expose yourselves, to expose your business, and maybe there will be some opportunities out there. It just comes to my mind, one of the first startups that got in contact with the FIWARE Acceleration Program through one challenge we launched a year ago, which is a startup called Smart Taxi. They have developed an application that allows taxi drivers to learn and to find out where there might be more number of customers in the next half an hour, right? So they have a pretty interesting application. They ported it into FIWARE, and they are now one of our first evangelists. We are helping to travel to the kind of events where we are present, and they are showcasing what they are doing, and they have been able to create some business opportunities in some of the cities they have been visiting. So take it seriously, because there will be some opportunities around this program in that respect. And again, the FIWARE Mundus program would be also an opportunity for you to go to some of these regions in Latin America with our help, to showcase your idea and maybe, find your target, your first target or big customer, maybe not in Spain or not in France, but all at the other part of the ocean. Why not? The last pillar, which you see here in this list of pillars, is the FIWARE Ops suite of tools. This might not be so necessarily so relevant for you, but just to complete the picture, we are creating tools that would allow to be able to set up your own FIWARE instance if your company is aiming at becoming a FIWARE provider. Okay. The whole intention is that there will be multiple FIWARE providers out there in the market, and therefore application providers will be able to choose which FIWARE provider they want to deploy their application on, and which one they trust, not only in terms of being able to operate their application, but also trust in respect to operating the data, right? So just overall vision about the program. I think it's important you understand that you are part and you are going to be a protagonist. You are called to be a protagonist of a big program. And but now let me introduce a bit what FIWARE is about. You have probably at this point heard about generic enablers, components of FIWARE, and you have even tried to find out something navigating through the FIWARE catalog, and probably you are a little bit lost. And so I will try with this presentation to give you kind of an overall perspective and a way for you to approach the FIWARE platform as a whole. FIWARE is intended to help you creating smart applications typically running on the cloud. This is somehow the target goal of FIWARE. It's not that much a platform for gaming, let me say, or for some other sort of applications. But if you are designing an application that intends to exhibit a smart behavior, probably FIWARE is a platform for you. And when we talk about creating smart applications, what we state is that you cannot be smart if you are not, first of all, aware. Okay, nobody is able to exhibit a smart behavior if he doesn't understand what's going on around. Okay, so one of the first focus of FIWARE has to do with supporting the notion of context awareness. Context in a wide sense. So one of the very core concepts within FIWARE is this notion of context information. If you think about almost any application of this kind, you could identify entities that are relevant to your application and entities which are characterized through a number of attributes whose values change over time. And somehow the context of your application is determined by the values of the attributes of those entities that are relevant to your application. You will see that FIWARE in the first place, will allow you to model context, to handle context information, and then provide you the tools to process that information and create a smart behavior in your application. Applications can be of any kind. So for instance, it might be something linked to digital home services, and you may have entities of many kinds. You may have the boiler at your home, and it's an entity with a number of attributes that characterize that entity. There might be users, or users are as such entities, and there might be flower pots, because you want to combine and create an application for the digital home so that people can program when flower pots get watered or when the boilers should start or shut down and stuff like that, okay? So again, entities which has a number of attributes which have a number of values and which change over time. And this applies to very simple applications which has a limited notion of context with small number of entities and small number of attributes, but it might also cover scenarios where we have much wider and large scale context information. That is, for example, the case of smart cities. In smart cities, you have the whole notion of what's going on in the city, okay? And this is something that FIWARE intends to provide support for. So you may have entities like the citizens, of course, with attributes that characterize them. There might be buses that are moving around in the city. There might be shops with location, with the kind of, I don't know, offerings that they can be publishing, whatever. The whole idea is to be able to handle all that information, gather that from different sources, and be able to offer, to keep it handled at large scale, and be able to publish this information so that applications can query about context, that they can also subscribe to changes in context so that they get notified whenever something relevant changes, and stuff like that. Everything being able to handle information at very large scale from the cloud. Entities are characterized by attributes. Some of those attributes might be more dynamic than others, and some of them might be more static. They may not come from the same system. So I may have a bus entity with allocation which is being fed by a given system or sensor, maybe, that is deployed on the bus. While there might be other attributes that are coming from other different systems. So the FIWARE platform will bring components that will allow you to model context and to be able to handle all this context information at large scale. Let me elaborate a bit on some of the characteristics and principles we support in FIWARE in that respect. So first of all is the notion of enabling to get decoupled from the source of information for a given attribute of any sort of entity. And this decoupling is not just from the perspective of which source is feeding the values of the attribute of the different entities, but also the ability to change that source of information for the same attribute of the same entity. Let me illustrate that with an example. I may be considering places, the notion of places, or even streets, when I'm talking about the city. And one of the attributes I may decide to have in my model is temperature, okay? Well, the point is that this temperature is something you will be able to query about no matter which is the source of information for that temperature for any kind of a street. So there might be some streets for which the temperature is provided because there is some sensor that was deployed in the street. There might be some streets where there is no sensor deployed, but there are buses circulating across the different streets with a sensor on board, and then whenever they pass the street, they provide this info about the temperature, and this is something you will be able to query, right? Or there might be some streets where even this information is provided by the users. The point is, no matter which source for each street is being deployed, the way you would consume this information, you will be able to query for that information or subscribe to changes in that attribute will not change. You will not be coupled to what has been the solution being deployed. And even more, there might be one street which in its whole history may change the way it's providing this particular information. So for the same street, it may happen that at the very beginning, the temperature was provided because there were buses going through that street that were injecting that value in the corresponding attribute. But at some point in time, the city may decide to deploy a sensor in that given street, and then from that point on, the temperature is being obtained by reading the value of the sensor. This is something that may change over the history of that street, but the way you would be able to consume or subscribe to this information will not change. You as a developer will get rid of the complexity of what is the source of information and how that is connected and obtained. I simply consume that information. Second aspect, which is interesting in the principles of the context management, context information management we are supporting, is that for a given entity, the values for two given attributes may come from different systems. So do not think that all the attributes coming from or linked to a given entity will come from the same system. Let me illustrate that with an example. Again, the bus. The bus may have an attribute which is the location that is being fed by sensors that are in the bus and somehow that are pushing for this value periodically, right? And this goes through a given system. But for instance, there might be the attribute which is the name of the current driver of the bus. And this value of this attribute may come from another different system, a system that is the one that is in charge of managing the scheduling of buses and assignment of drivers to the different buses and lines, etc. Right? This again is something that becomes transparent to the final developer. Question is, you have a standard model, and the way this model is implemented from one city to another may vary because, among other things, the systems that a given city may have in place might be different. That's why we say that this vision of context information management is non-intrusive. We go to a concrete to the the place where we or the organization where we aim to deploy our application, and our application will be able to handle context information, which we will be able to connect to the different sources of information depending on the particular customer, or in this case a city, or the particular deployment for your application, for instance a home or whatever. Another question that is very important is also the ability to expand the model. From our perspective, context information and the notion of context should be able to expand over time without this requiring to regenerate, reconfigure, relaunch applications or whatever. So it should be feasible at any point in time to add a new type of entity or add a new type of attribute to existing entities without changing anything of what was working already. Okay, this is a very fundamental concept we aim to support when we talk about context. Another key principle is that of making it easier to connect to the Internet of Things. We understand that part of this context information will come as a result of reading measures from sensors. The same way, we will be able to act upon context and create some side effects by means of changing values of attributes of some of our entities in the model, and this will create some actuation on some device which will trigger some side effect in the real world. So just to give an example, we may have a water pot, a flower pot, and we, being able to measure the humidity of that flower pot should be as easy as reading the value of an attribute, the attribute humidity of that flower pot. Same way, triggering what is needed to water that flower pot should be as easy as changing the value of an attribute of my context, in my context. This is the kind of effect we want to trigger when we connect to physical objects, the kind of objects that are part of the Internet of Things. I don't know how many of you are familiar with SNMP. SNMP, the management protocol. Okay, some of you. We say that we are trying to create something which is like the SNMP for the Internet of Things. So if you know about SNMP, SNMP worked precisely that way. You had a model, a management information base, and you had attributes, and whenever you read the value of an attribute, you would be reading the state of the equipments you were managing. Whenever you change the value of an attribute, you create a side effect and you trigger some action that the agent that was running on that equipment would execute. This would work similar way. The only difference is that this is a RESTful API. Fermin will elaborate on the details right after me. But reading measures from sensors will be as easy as making a get on some resource, and acting on a device will be as easy as also changing some values on attributes of that device. So this is an example with the flower pot, sorry, but it might be also going through a more sophisticated device or more big devices like a lamp in the street and so on. So a very fundamental concept we aim to support is that of managing context information. One of the first APIs we are going to explain you today has to do with NGSI, which is the API that FIWARE supports to handling, to get access to update, to publish, and also to query or subscribe to context information. And you will see it's really pretty simple, but because it's simple, we believe it's powerful. And I guess you would agree that there is no standard in this field. So what we are trying to achieve with FIWARE is creating a standard for context management in the first place. There are many other standards that you will see along the week that we are pushing for in FIWARE, but this is one of the first fundamental standards we are pushing, okay? And just think about the big opportunities that would be created for creating applications if you know that all the cities in Europe, to give an example, export this same API to give you information about what's going on in the city. If you had such a standard, this will be a real trigger for innovation and for creating very interesting application. But same applies to other domains. If all farms are being, smart farms are being deployed so that sensors automatically inject data and made it available through this context information platform, then it will be actually a real driver for innovation, because many entrepreneurs, many developers will be able to create an application that is capable to run on a given setup, like a given city, for instance, but be exported to many other cities. I will not elaborate on the details about the different interactions models that are supported through FIWARE NGSI, because Fermin is coming with this later. Nor I will also elaborate on how we deal with integration with the different IoT protocols that are supported. This is going to be seen, I think, tomorrow. But the general picture is, once you are able to get all this information about context that is relevant to your application, FIWARE will be able to provide to you a lot of components, a lot of what we call generic enablers that will help you to create intelligent behavior exploiting this context information. So you will see that you will have tools for creating virtual reality user interface, that you will be able to export part of your data and try to make it part of open data market, for instance. You will be able to process all the historic information that will be generated about context, because context is something that is dynamic and changes over time. And we are providing the means to store all that information. And right after that, you can perform big data analysis and stuff like that. So once you have all this information, you will be able to process it, to analyze it, and do a lot of fancy things with it that will be useful for creating the kind of smart behavior that your application is intended to provide. There will be some components also for carrying out real-time processing, and you will also learn that data, discrete data, is not the only thing that we consider part of context. We also provide means to process video streams in real time, because video cameras, for instance, might be providing you part of the context of your application. A part of that context you want to process, you want to analyze, and do things with. Okay? So when we go through the different seminars during this week, try to think about this global vision of creating these tools, integrating those tools with the basic context management generic enablers, and create a basis for some of the functionality you want to bring in your application. This is just a very high-level overview of how some of these components may be combined. So the context broker component, which is the first component we will describe today, is the one that supports the NGSI API, which is this API we support in FIWARE for handling context information. This context broker component is, of course, since context change over time and is dynamic, will store this into a historic repository, and this will feed Hadoop-based platform we bring as part of FIWARE to help you carry out big data analysis. And part of this analysis, by the way, may translate into insights that can enrich context also. So think about also tools around context information, the very basic context information, which could help to create higher level data that will become part of context. Complex event processing are also the kind of components you will be able to use in FIWARE that would allow to detect in real-time patterns on context information so that you can react quickly to some patterns and detect when you have to trigger some action or whatever. And well, there's components like this. And the connection to the Internet of Things will work in a way that essentially through different kind of IoT agents that are capable to speak the different IoT languages, they will be able to inject context information using the context broker APIs. So somehow you will get in this picture a way to get everything connected. Don't forget that context information will not only come from the Internet of Things, from physical objects, but may come from different systems, other sources that are relevant for your application. Your application may need to interact with other systems, like, for instance, I don't know, Twitter, to give an example, or whatever. And it's the combination of the information coming out from the different sources, what you will exploit using the tools that we are providing. I think we have already elaborated on the big data analysis sort of tools. One other component that you will learn that we offer as part of FIWARE is the ability to have a catalog for data sources. and in this particular case, context information sources. There might be some data sources, some data sets that are linked to files, and they get published so that you can download it and maybe upload them to a big data platform. But some of the resources and data sets will be linked to NGSI resources. So therefore, more dynamic resources that you will, a given developer will be able, or even a final user will be able to consume. And whenever they consume those resources, you are actually performing a query on the current state of context. There is a platform for publication of data sets. We have integrated as part of FIWARE. Many of you, I hope, have heard about it, is SICAN. SICAN is very widely used in open data initiatives, but it's not a platform that is just limited to open data. It can be used for creating data set catalogs, and even, why not, a potential marketplace for data sets. And you will learn also during this week how we have integrated the different components together with SICAN, and how you can even set up some means for selling part of your data using the tools that come with FIWARE. So, generally speaking, this is the global vision I wanted to share with you. I have also elaborated about the global vision about the program, but with this is kind of a first introduction to what you will see in the next sessions today and tomorrow, and during the whole week. But I hope that this way you get somehow a first flavor of how things could be integrated and are meaningful for you. Again, we are talking about a platform trying to support development of smart applications running on the cloud, handling data at large scale, and being capable to handle a lot of users with different access policies on data and APIs. And this is somehow the first overview that we wanted to provide you before going into the very details. And with this, I think I can close now and give the floor to Fermin so that he can elaborate on the details of one of these core components, which is the context broker. Thank you.